Alright, moving on up to floor 3. Welcome back to our Dungeon of the Endless members only run. Last time we explained more about the in-depth aspects of the general game mechanics. This time I'm going to go a little bit more into the nitty-gritty, and then hopefully at some point I'm going to get into the story, although, like I said last video, if you want to check out a much better viewing experience as far as the prologue of the game, check out Dungeon of the Endless's YouTube channel. They have a very short film that is pretty much a more extended version of the opening prologue that you see on this game when you select new game. It shows off all sorts of cool stuff, but I'll just show you guys, or I'll start to explain right here the food industry science dust system. So right there you saw dust is used for leveling up your characters, making them more powerful, unlocking their passive and active abilities. It can also be used to heal them in the heat of battle. You know, you won't always be able to survive just off of their base health, so you can restore their health by paying some food. Depending on, you know, what their level is, the food cost will increase. And right here I'm kind of trying to kite enemies, just because I heard about this from the subreddit for Dungeon of the Endless. I heard about kiting enemies being a decent strategy, and I tried out a little later on to a much better effect. Right there I was just kind of messing around, but and you see after each battle you actually do regenerate all of your health, so if you can make it through a fight with a sliver left, I recommend doing that just to save resources, but like, don't get yourself killed doing it, obviously. If you do need to make it through a tough fight, though, and you need to heal a character, or if you're doing a crystal run, your crystal bearer is about to die, very important that you know to heal them. And you can do that by hitting H, or by clicking the grayed out cross button on the character portraits on the top right. I usually just hit H because it's faster, but yeah, if you just want to click on the screen, you can hit the bar. It'll turn green when your character is able to be healed. So yes, that's food. It's also used to recruit new heroes, as you probably saw last video with Sarah Numis. You'll see a couple more times we find a couple other characters on this floor, actually. But that's food, in essence. You always want to have a decent amount. You want to keep it stockpiled, because you never know when you might need to heal, but you also may want to spend some of it leveling up your characters, especially if they have some really good abilities hidden on the higher levels, like Hikensha being able to operate is very useful for us on this run, so it's a good thing that we leveled her up like that. And you also saw abilities, I think, you know. Abilities are very useful. Jolari, since she's a tank, both of her abilities are all about increasing everybody's defenses, pretty much allowing everybody to hold out for a longer period of time if they're just fighting wave after wave of monsters. But usually, I do find it is better if you just let your modules take care of the bulk of enemies. Anyways, we find a merchant here. He's dealing in science, and he actually has Occam's Gouge, which is a really great sword weapon, which I'm gonna see if I can give to Hikensha here. And just, yeah, it's definitely worth it for the stats that it gives. And I think it also gave us a little extra wit. I didn't see there, but yeah, I think it gives us a little extra wit. So food explained. Industry, I went over more or less. Basically, anything you want to build in the dungeon. And here you can see, this is Nurse Dina Ratchet. She wants 42 food to recruit, but again, members only, so she is not going to find her place in our fantastic duo. And as luck would have it, in the very next room we find Skroig. I highly recommend Skroig. He's very quick. He's a little squishy, but he's got great attack speed, great attack power, and one of his abilities, Red Plume, pisses off all of the enemies in the room with him at each other. And that's really amazing later on if you have ridiculous amounts of enemies trying to get to your crystal room. It keeps them in the same room fighting each other. It's just brilliant. So Skroig's really good. Anyways, industry. So you've been seeing us building major modules to get more of other modules. Industry is what we use to do that. If we want more industry with the industry generators, we need to use industry. If we want more food, industry. If we want more science, industry. If we want to build defenses for all of those, also industry. Everything has an industry cost, any of the modules that we build. And that's pretty much the primary focus of it. Like I said, any of these resources can be used with merchants, but you know, they all have their specified uses, but industry is probably the most basic. Anything in the dungeon you want to build in these static spots in any of those sort of conduit things, you're using industry. I'm sure I made that clear in about 100 different ways in the past 20 seconds. Anyways, so that's industry. Science, it's kind of the least... Well, I don't know, there's some very good uses, but it's not used nearly as often. Basically, whenever you see those artifacts, the big blue crystal structures, you're using science points to research new modules, which you're then going to use industry to build. Going back, it all goes back to industry. It always goes back to industry. But, and right here, like I said before, we're kind of using a kiting tactic, running back and forth from one room to the other when the enemies are kind of in between the doorway as much as they can be, so that we don't have to heal, we don't have to fight them head-on, and our modules can take care of them for us. And that worked out pretty well, I found. This was pretty good floor for my strategic abilities. Right here we have sort of a containment tube, or a vial, or I don't know what you would call that. A chamber, like a stasis chamber. And that one right there we spent some industry to open, and it gave us some food. There are also dust machines. That's the one other use of industry. You can spend industry to open certain structures within the dungeon. Sometimes they'll give you nice stuff, sometimes they'll give you absolutely nothing and screw you. So right here I'm building a couple more modules, some pepper sprays. Since we have a pretty big wave of enemies coming, this is gonna come in real handy. But anyways, back to science. You use it to research modules, but the other less obvious use is, you know how you have a cooldown time? Right now you see Jolary actually has a one door cooldown on her one active ability we have on her right now. If we really needed that ability, which it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to use it right here, but I decided to save the science. If we hit J, which is the hotkey to do this, you can spend an amount of science, say like 10-15 science, and you will ignore the cooldown rate of your ability. So it'll basically automatically cool down that ability for you, which can come in very handy. Like I mentioned before with Skroig, who I think has died now along with Dina, because of those big orc guys who are, I think they're called Herna. They're not actually orcs, they're Herna, but they look like orcs. But yeah, his ability Red Plume, say if I wanted to piss off a group of enemies at each other and they kill each other, but then another wave comes in and I can't use the ability because the cooldown's on, I could spend an amount of science, skip the cooldown rate, and then be able to use the ability again, keep pissing off the enemies. And that's essentially how I got to the end of one of my more recent successful runs, was just spamming the hell out of that ability. It was very useful. And I accidentally moved Hikensha off of her science operating spot right there, so I move her over to food, just because. And I don't know, do I change my mind? I don't know. I'm trying to remember everything that happens here, but I'm a little bit crazy sometimes with what I'm trying to decide to do on this game. So I think in essence that explains everything. We've got dust, food, science, industry. They're all very important in their own rights. But yeah, that's about as much of the gameplay as I can explain to you guys. Outside of that, it's just strategy, you know, knowing what to do, and a couple, you know, handy little shortcuts that you'll learn as you play. Like a couple tips if you want to build multiple structures at once without having to click onto the menu every time. It took me hours to learn this, but if you hold down shift and click the module spots, you can keep putting down modules until you're done. Otherwise you're gonna have to like click into the menu, select the thing you want, place it, and repeat that as many times as you want to place things, which can be very tedious. Another thing I thought was kind of neat is if you hit F. I don't use it that much because it's more cosmetic than anything. If you hit F while you're selecting one hero, the camera will actually follow that hero and give you kind of a dynamic following camera, and it just looks cool. You know, not really super necessary anyways. So those are some little things. You can also create groups, so like if you have 4 characters but you want to move like 2 or 3 at a time and leave one alone, but you want a quick button to access the 3 guys and not the one, you can create groups by, I think, hitting Control and then any of the number keys, which is kind of handy. You can set stuff up like that. So yeah, 3 floors worth of gameplay mechanics, and I think we're finally sort of caught up. Next time I will try and talk a little bit more about the lore of the world, but I think this is a decent starting point. So we'll leave it at that. So thank you for watching, everybody. We're pretty much set for this level. This is a good one. You know, we came out with a little less resources than we did from last floor, but if you need it, you gotta spend it, you gotta spend it. So anyways, next time we'll be back with floor 4. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye.